every time I see what's going on in the Middle East, especially with Israel in the mix, I am blown away by the intelligence. What will it have been like for clandestine agents in the buildup to this?
Israel has the most expansive network of human sources in all of Iran. And what those sources look like and what they do and how they work, the United States would never know. We would never get to know because Israel's source protection process as a professional intelligence organization would protect their sources so well that we wouldn't know. We would just get the intel that Israel chooses to share with us. However, Israel's technical capabilities for leveraging technical surveillance, satellite-based surveillance, airplanes that are able to collect signals intelligence, boats that are able to connect signals intelligence, tapping into underwater cables or underground cables, all that technological power really sits with the United States more than Israel. They have capability, but their capability can't compete with the United States' capability. So you would have their whole human network would come alive. Israel would basically say, hey, we want to get as much information, as much intelligence as possible on the ground about 5 or 7 different priorities. Khamenei, the head of the IRGC, these various leaders, when are they meeting, where are they meeting, et cetera. It wouldn't be intelligence about the attitude of the people. That's not what would be prioritized. What would be prioritized is plans, intentions, locations, movements, et cetera. And then, of course, there would be a whole separate amount of intelligence that's trying to be covered on how will they respond, how will they react, what are their top 3 executables, what is the shelf plan, like what is the contingency plan, what folder will they take off the shelf, turn to page 1, checklist item 1, launch against Erbil, check. Shit, like everybody has these contingency plans pre-made, pre-approved, so that in the event of a leadership loss, you can take it off the shelf and do what the leader wanted. So all of that human network would have been brought to life by Israel. Simultaneously, as Israel got technical, what's called identifiers, or what is the word I'm looking for? My vocabulary is failing me. But as they got indicators, technical indicators and technical unique identifiers, cell phone numbers, actual IMEI codes from cell phones, Wi-Fi details, cellular network providers, satellite phone units and frequencies. As they got these unique identifiers, then they would be able to use those using American technological capabilities to isolate the person using them and then to put essentially 24-hour surveillance on them. Satellite-based, aircraft-based, drone-based,
I heard they also hacked like the street cameras, and that they had hacked inside of the military bases. They could get into their cameras.
I mean, it wouldn't be surprised. That would be an Israeli capability most likely, because it would take years to develop that capability. Yeah. So if that happened, that would have been an Israeli capability, not an American capability.
What's the craziest kind of thing that actually happens that obviously you can talk about? I bring that up because I saw a report that's probably fake, but it was like, oh, just the kind of thing that piqued my curiosity, where they said that they had so many dentists that were part of Mossad that they had been implanting into these high-ranking guys' teeth, like tracking devices, for years. And that was one of the ways they were able to know where all of them are. And then, boom, when they struck, it was because they were very confident that
I would call bullshit on that.
Yeah, that felt like one of those. I wanted it to be real, but I was like,
There's technical issues. There's technical limitations with that, right? How do you put a battery inside the tracking device? Yeah. How do you power the tracking device when you need it? Like, there's problems there. Could it happen? Hey, anything is possible, but is it plausible?
Yeah.
Not so much. Not when there's an easier way than putting tracking items into fillings in teeth that have incredible pressure whenever you chew on a pine nut, right?
Yeah.
So some of the craziest stuff I've seen is really more mundane. I think what makes it crazy is that it's so mundane. When surveillance or intelligence equipment is built into infrastructure, when it's built into conveniences that the enemy then purchases for themselves, right? So it's like, I know that my enemy is purchasing tractors. So a tractor has enough space for you to put on a tracking device, a covert cell tower, a large battery.
Covert cell tower.
So now wherever that tractor goes, it's basically a hijackable cell tower that gives you data on anybody that's connected to its network. And you can selectively,
crazy one.
Exactly. You can selectively turn that stuff on or off. And everybody needs it. And now you can actually have the tractor built in Germany by a Austrian company carrying an American technology. And then everywhere that tractor goes, we have a covert cell tower. If you haven't discovered your natural-born spy skills, then somebody else might be using theirs against you. CIA teaches us that there are only 3 types of people in the world: those who motivate, those who manipulate, and those who are being controlled by one of the other 2. I created a 3-minute CIA-style quiz to help you unlock your secret psychological advantage and identify your hidden blind spot. This test was developed to help you weaponize your natural-born gifts and use them to get ahead of 99% of people in power, wealth, and purpose. It was also designed to make sure that you can protect yourself against those who would use their skills against you. All you have to do is click on the first link in the description below or scan the QR code on your screen to start your spy quiz now. I want you to discover your secret spy superpower and use it for good before somebody else uses their power against you.
What do you think about that Bible app that got hacked, supposedly, and they were like sending messages to people either right before the attack or right after?
I don't know.
You didn't hear about
I haven't
this?
heard about it, but it doesn't
It's wild.
sound unrealistic.
Yeah, again, I didn't spend enough time verifying it, but there was that. And then supposedly Trump had also hacked, not him personally, but we had hacked their television systems, like I think the actual TVs, and they were broadcasting a message to them after the attack happened, letting them know, like, hey, basically we'll offer amnesty for people that, you know, basically get on the right side here. So very, very interesting. It's, yeah, that kind of stuff is incredible. The pager one really blew my mind. That's when I realized that, oh, this has been a failure of imagination on my part. The amount of time you would have to plan ahead for that is wild.
And that's the big thing to understand is the reason Iran was so successful, the reason Venezuela was so successful is because they were able to tap into a stream of intelligence far enough in advance that they could execute with confidence, with high probability of confidence, right? Now, Venezuela was a different beast because there wasn't an attack on infrastructure. There wasn't an attack. There weren't missiles that came in from boats off. I mean, there were, but it wasn't the same extent, right? It was a different type of covert operation specifically to come in and capture one person at one specific period of time with minimal collateral damage. Whereas clearly with this attack, it wasn't run by the Americans. It was the Israelis that really ran the first round of attack in Iran. And it was a whole different beast. It was meant to topple multiple leaders at one time. It was meant to cause damage to military infrastructure that would be part of a counterattack. Like it was a different beast. So one operation probably took 6 months. Venezuela probably took about 6 months of planning, whereas successfully prosecuting Iran would have taken years to build the intelligence, the network, the assets, the technical capabilities, and then wait for the right moment to strike.
You had said about Venezuela, you said, listen, I think Venezuela is a decoy, and the reality is this is the beginning of a secret war between the US and China. And that is part of my read. So my read is twofold. You put China as the backdrop to both Venezuela and Iran. China was buying 90% of Iran's oil. Now, that doesn't mean that 90% of China's supply is from Iran, but they were buying 90% of Iran's oil. So basically, Iran is a gas station for China. We know that China is doing everything they can to get around the US sanctions. The US have been trying to control China and basically everybody else through sanctions. Not working as well with China because they have ways to get around it, plus they have a ton of leverage on us. But if you go after Maduro, that's one set of shadow fleet oil tankers headed to China. You go after Iran, that's another shadow fleet of oil tankers going after China, or going to China. And part of the timing, I think, is he knows he's running out of time to get to the midterms. And to avoid the house flipping blue, he's only got one option, and that's economic growth. And if people don't understand that Trump is reckless economically, reckless, and he has exactly one agenda, and that's I'm going to spend like a fool so that I can keep getting elected, which everybody now is doing on both sides of the aisle, at least I will give Trump that he has a strategy, maybe a terrible one, but he has a strategy, which is to grow more than he, and some people get uncomfortable with this language, but he's going to grow more than he plans to steal. And to me, inflation is theft. And so when you're deficit spending, you are stealing from the poor and working class more than anybody. You're creating the insane K-shaped economy that we're all dealing with right now. And so I see him looking at Venezuela and it's like, cool, I can damage China and get control of however many billions of dollars of oil. I look at Iran and I can do the same. I can hurt China once again with their access to cheap oil, and I can get control of it. And I think this is arguably the single most important thing as to why they moved now. He's got $2 trillion of promises from the wealth that's been accumulated in the Middle East, but only about 780 to 790 billion of that is more or less guaranteed. So if he wants to get the rest of it, which is all sort of a smile and a handshake, he's got to find a way to stabilize the region so that they're not like, listen, we've got our own problems here. We're having enough trouble with Vision 2030. We're going to deal with that. But if he can stabilize that, if he can make sure that the Strait of Hormuz can continue to flow, now he's got the ability to say, hey guys, stabilize the region for you. Big gamble on my part, but now I want to make sure that these things actually happen. And if you put a positive spin on that, it's looking at uniting the Middle East with economics, which I actually think is very smart. I just don't love that it's such a big gamble.
I think that you're far closer to right than you are to wrong, for sure.
Give me the parts that are wrong.
I don't think anything's wrong. I think that there's a couple of nuances that are important to understand, right? So China's already deeply in bed with Iran as convenient partners, not as loyalist partners, not as ideologically aligned partners, but like you said, they're the fuel, the gas station for China. China is also supporting them through their ballistic missiles and through their scientific research and through other technological endeavors. So as Iran modernizes, they're modernizing on the back of Chinese technology, which is exactly what China wants. So there's a very convenient relationship there for the two of them. China doesn't see that convenient relationship going away with a change in regime. Because the question is the United States actually going to replace Iran with a pro-Western regime? Are they going to put the time and effort and invest into that? Is Israel going to try to put a pro-Israel regime in there? No. They're totally happy with Iran. The United States and Israel are totally happy with Iran just being a burnt out hole in the ground for the next 25 years. They don't care about the Iranian people. They're not there to rebuild democracy. They're not, and if the clerical leadership tries to stay in power, the theocracy tries to stay in power, everybody who becomes the new Ayatollah is going to be the next person to get whacked, killed, blown up, right? Along with their wife and their kids and their family, just like Khomeini got killed. We've completely abandoned this idea of just war or the idea of international law where you don't strike the head of a state. We've given that up, and we've shown that between both Venezuela and Iran. But what will happen is there will be a vacuum. There will be a vacuum that needs to be filled with money, technology, basic survival needs, and China will try to fill that gap just like they tried to fill that gap in Afghanistan. So I do agree that China is a big part of this and a big part of Iran's future, whether we like it or not. The timing is really interesting. I think you're totally right. Saudi curbing its spending recently because it's having its own issues is largely tied to it feeling like it needs to protect itself against Iran. And every wealthy Khaliji country in the Gulf is concerned about the Shia Crescent encroaching on their security. They spend a great deal of money on mass surveillance and national defense, et cetera, et cetera. And stability would help them feel like they could spend their money on something else. That's a really intelligent approach to the question that I had never considered before. If you like that video, you're going to love the next one, and I'll see you there. CIA doesn't want people who want to be CIA. CIA is looking for people who have a psychological need for external validation. And then CIA can become the single source for that external validation.